The National Security Coordinator, Major General Francis Edu Amanfo, retired, has justified the forced removal from office of the Ashanti Regional Security Liaison, DCOP Opare Addo. The Regional Security Coordinator has shared details of how he was attacked by some members of the Delta Force Vigilante group and hit with the butt of a gun. The group, according to him, claimed they were acting on orders from above to take Mr. Opare Addo to the National Security Office in Accra. He shared a story on PM Express with Evans Mason.
7 young men came to the office and said that the National Security Coordinator has asked them to bring me to Accra. Then they started struggling with me and they handcuffed me. And I told them that I wanted to go and urinate. And one of them followed me and said, and I asked why he was following me and said, oh, but we are all men. You can, sorry, I can follow you. I said, no. He followed me to the toilet and I urinated and came back to my office. They closed the door, took our phones, and even one of them hit me with an AK-47 rifle.
You were hit with the butt of the AK-47 rifle?
Yes, with the butt of the AK-47 rifle. And I said, what is this? That they say we should bring you to the National Security Headquarters. And I said, I won't go. So when the police picked up, I don't know what should have been done. But if it was in my time, I would detain all of them. But the police never did detain them. And they said we should go and come the next day. That's Wednesday. On Wednesday, I went there, and none of the 7 came to the regional police headquarters. I wrote my statement. My secretary, with whom I was in my office, wrote her statement. And one junior officer, Danso, who was in his office, and that was also locked. The operations room also wrote a statement. So we're waiting for what will happen.
So they said you should be brought to the National Security Secretariat headquarters in Accra. Did they identify themselves as true operatives of the National Security Secretariat?
They were not the true operators. Well, I knew 4 of them. Mustafa, Staff, Mohammed, Saidu, Kerry, and Atta. I knew 4 of them who had been with me in Kumasi. They were coming to my office. They wanted me to go and do this same thing with them, and I never did want that to happen. And the other three, I never knew them. But one mentioned his name as Roxing, the leader of the group, and the like.
During a tour of some 4 mining communities, including the Ashanti and Western regions, Major General Amanfo did not deny the attack. He accused the DCOP Opare Addo of engaging in criminal activities and refusing to vacate office at the end of his tenure.
Of these allegations are vicious, so we need to investigate them before I can make.
When DCOP Opare Addo has said that he was handcuffed and pushed out of his office, and you are saying the allegations.
He rather called police reinforcement and got the team that went to mitigate the event in Kumasi, and they were handcuffed. It is a team from Accra which was handcuffed.
Opare Addo wasn't handcuffed?
He wasn't handcuffed.
He wasn't assaulted?
He rather called the police commander, regional commander, to come. And they came and arrested the team that we have sent to Accra. But do you know what? The bottom line of it all is that Opare Addo had a contract with National Security.
Okay.
And I had not even assumed office. And for 4 years, he was the regional liaison officer for national security. His term of office or his contract expired, and it was not renewed. I understand that it was not renewed because of non-performance and because of his own criminal activities.
Like what, sir?
Like what, sir? What are some of the things that you picked up as an intelligent chief?
But finally, you
how
say
are you addressing these issues so that the president will be comfortable that your men are doing the right?
These issues are being investigated. A team and a committee has been set up, to investigate.
But finally, for me, you say you've transferred the guys to Accra, essentially to do what? To prosecute them?
The guys who
said,
I mean, you mentioned that a team from Accra came and they picked up the alleged.
He had no locus to be in the office because a new officer had been appointed, and he should have handed over to the officer. He says he won't hand over. And so that is why a team was sent to Accra to go and mitigate and facilitate the handing and taking over process.
Now, the Director of Communications of the NPP, Buaben Asamoa, has criticized the outgoing Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator, DCOP Opare Addo, for going public about attacks on him. Mr. Opare Addo was allegedly attacked in his office by members of the pro-NPP vigilante group Delta Force, who were said to have hit him with the butt of an AK-47 assault rifle and forcibly shut his office. But at a news conference in Accra today, Buaben Asamoa said Mr. Opare Addo was embarrassing the party and the state.
Since the passage of the Vigilantism Act, there is nothing like Delta Force in our system. It's been disbanded. Whoever had control of it has disbanded it, and it doesn't exist. Now, the Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator, the gentleman who is the subject of this matter, ought to have left his office long before his contract has expired. He hasn't responded to any of the entreaties from his headquarters to move on. Not having responded, headquarters felt obliged to go and enforce his removal. Unfortunately, he didn't take kindly to it. He chose a very loud way of going about it, and it has embarrassed him. I think he should be embarrassed that this incident has happened. There is no way he can come out of this incident smelling good, because he has no basis for what he did, which is to oppose his office, to try and maintain himself in an office where his welcome had expired by law. Nobody who went there is from any other organization but the state. I want to make that very, very clear. Unfortunately, he didn't respond well to them, and it has led to this public situation that we have. It's unfortunate, but the embarrassment belongs to him. The embarrassment doesn't belong to the state. The embarrassment belongs to him because he chose to make a spectacle of himself when he ought to have left office at the right time.
But the approach, people have criticized the approach. Couldn't there be a better approach?
I like democratic growth. What is democratic growth? We learn from all that happens. Here is somebody who officially has received letters, officially has had correspondence, verbal as well, to leave office, and has refused flatly. Here is somebody who ought perhaps, if he was not satisfied, to have come to his headquarters to inquire, or to wherever he felt he drew his strength from, to inquire about his status. He didn't. Now here is that same person who is in office and has resisted all formal means of getting rid of, to the point where now the state has to use minimum force. You know, the state is empowered to use minimum force to enforce the law. The state has to use minimum force to enforce the law. The state comes into your office and you are the first one to react. You were not polite to the state, and then you turn around and say the state was impolite to you. If he had allowed the space, it was a very simple process. All this would not have happened. Whatever has happened is because the gentleman did not allow the formal processes to go on. He did not allow the space. So at the point where they arrived, there was no other way, because they didn't go there violently, but he provoked the violence. Whatever his story is, trying to create an impression that he is angelic and ought to come out as a hero. The bottom line is that he is no hero because he didn't have a right to what he was doing. He is no hero because he didn't deserve to put all of us in that embarrassment when he had no legal rights. He ought not to have done what he did.
So
Are you confirming the 4 he alleges to be part of the Delta Force?
This,
absorbed by the...
there is no Delta Force. Nobody has absorbed anybody. The state security agencies have a right to recruit persons, and they do recruit persons. They have their own methods of recruitment. He chooses to use the word Delta Force, and he's supposed to be a state official. He should know that the state banned paramilitary and out-of-state organizations a couple of years ago. He should know. If he claims to be a public official, he should know this for a fact. So how come he is now talking about Delta Force? He's trying to puff himself up.
He mentioned some names.
If I mention your name now as a media terrorist, will you accept it?
Let's speak with security analyst and senior mediation advisor at the UN, Emmanuel Bombande. Good evening to you, and thank you for making time to speak with us. I wonder how all of this comes across to you, but it appears quite chaotic on the national security front. Is that really the case, or there's no cause for alarm?
Thank you, Israel, and good evening to all your viewers. I think you have used the right word. It appears quite chaotic. Let me start by saying that my good friend Buaben Asamoa should not be the one addressing this issue with the public, because he's a party official and not a state official. Once there is an election and a party wins, and the president then assigns duties to various people, such as DCOP Opare Addo, they no longer belong to the party. They belong to the state. And so state machinery and the efficiency of governance behoves upon all Ghanaians, regardless of your political party affiliation, to relate with such officials as state officials. So when there is a problem, such as the one we are discussing, it should be a state official who should be addressing the matter, such as Major General Amanfo, and not your Asamoa Buaben.
So let's stick with Major General Amanfo.
Yes. So then if we come to Major General Amanfo, he has muddied the waters further, he has created more confusion, and he has left all Ghanaians aghast.
Let's identify the confusion and all of that.
The confusion is the method by which he confirms that operatives had to go from Accra to Kumasi to remove from office DCOP Opare Addo. The operationalization of an efficient security machinery cannot use those methods to remove somebody who is supposed to be outgoing, as confirmed by he himself in terms of letters. Because once you do that, keep in mind, Israel, it is the responsibility of the state to protect citizens. And how the citizens are confident that the state is protecting them through an efficient coordination of internal security is also about how you go about doing your administrative business and management. When you do this, what comes across to the people of Ghana is that there is a tough battle. And on that tough battle, the one who is stronger will win. And to that extent, therefore, Ghanaians then will be left wondering, where are we in terms of the protection that the state must provide? So that, for me, is key. And the second element, probably we can begin to take away from the conversation, is Ghanaians must be able to know who are national security operatives. So who should we believe? DCOP Opare Addo or Major General Amanfo? Because the element of Delta Force is introduced by DCOP Opare Addo. General Amanfo dismisses that. And it's not about whether or not the Delta Force were in operation. It's about the clarity of mind, so that when you and I are in any situation where we find security operatives, we can be absolutely confident that they are security operatives of the state. And because they are security operatives of the state, they can be held accountable for their actions. For example, if they infringe on your human right or my human right, the state can be held accountable. And this is where then the confusion lies, and we need to sort this out and sort it out as urgently as possible.
All right, so here's this regional security liaison officer who is supposed to be out of office but refuses to. What are the structures? What are the laid down procedures for getting him out of office?
So first of all, he was appointed through due procedure in which he had letters of appointment and in which, obviously, in arriving in the region, the representative of the president in the region is the regional minister. And so he had to report to him and be in his office. In the same way, in his exit, he should have the letter that can be authenticated that he has been removed from his office. And because he has been removed from his office, he should no longer occupy that office. Now, the argument is, we don't know if we take the two couples, whose version should we? I think we would want to go with Major General Amanfo. But should we dismiss yesterday's interview on Joy News platform of DCOP Opare Addo?
Indeed, and I'd want us to look at that because he raises issues of criminality on the part of the operatives or so-called operatives who came to him. Meanwhile, we're hearing the National Security Coordinator also impugning criminality on his part. How do we reconcile that? And indeed, who are we to believe?
Indeed, who are we to believe? But it even gets more complicated and confusing when you begin to look at the various elements. Now, keep in mind that Ghanaians have a history and a memory. It's not that this is the first time this is visiting us. In the Ayawaso West Wagon by-election, out of the Emil Short Commission, what we knew was that people who were used as national security operatives, such as some of them employed or some of them simply introduced, turned out not to be the national security operatives that we know. So with that in the back of our mind, we are subjecting every situation to be able to ascertain, are they real national security operatives or not? And our security couples must be the first to know this. I know for a fact that up to 5 incidences of such magnitude have occurred in 2021. As a matter of fact, a few weeks ago, a group tried to prevent my friend Boniface Agambila from taking office as the Northern Development Authority CEO. People had to come in, and luckily the situation did not emerge as a crisis. And each time there is always a doubt about their either vigilante groups or their vigilante groups who are employed in national security or they are national security operatives. Ghanaians need to have clarity. Who are our security operatives?
Indeed.
And secondly, who do we believe? The National Security Coordinator or the outgoing regional security liaison of Ashanti region?
All right, Mr. Bombani, I want to come to you for us to figure out how we resolve a situation like this. But here's some other information which would help the conversation. Because in a related development, the MPP coordinator for the new Zongo electoral area, Nana Addo Otri, has condemned the attack on the regional security liaison, DCOP Opare Addo. Nana Addo Otri, who is respected by members of youth groupings within the governing party, says the attack was not sanctioned by Delta Force, adding that those who stormed the office did so on their own accord. He wants the law to go after the assailants and for their actions to be roundly condemned. Let's listen to him.
I don't think any leader of this group asked any member to go and get the national security liaison out of office.
But papa was also a lawyer. One of the circus and one twin science a Delta Force.
DCOP Opare Addo must avoid saying Delta Force members pushed him out of office. Though the act, I must admit, was wrong.
No. Now, I'd go to me condemn and say, the boys in the choir no office no mean support tobacco cry. Boys in the Delta Force
the boys didn't go in the name of Delta Force. Delta Force, I must say, is no longer in existence.
No way. I want to appetite. I want to appetite because the momo and abandon so on pa who need to me so baby. So by no or no Akanasem also onim Delta Force. Oni invisible. Abana na kanem na mekanyo. Eti de abana kano. Mimi need to be visa message abana kasa.
Now, let's allow the law to take its full course.
All right, Mr. Bombande, I'm coming back to you. So here we have an influential member of the New Patriotic Party in Kumasi who's saying that, well, he condemns the actions of the so-called operatives who went to the office of the Regional Security Liaison. But then we've also heard from the MPP Communications Director who seems to be on the side of the guys who took those actions.
Yeah, Israel, there are 2 points. One, we can agree with him, and one, we will strongly disagree with him. Where we would all agree with him, and I believe most Ghanaians would agree with him, is that the law should take its course and justice should be seen to be done. However, if he's the coordinator of New Zongo electoral area, why is he trying to defend the actions or not of Delta Force? Why is he saying Delta Force was not involved when he's saying Delta Force does not exist? So there's a problem of logic. There's a problem of basic common understanding. So basically, he has a new name, but he's still Delta Force. And the reason I say this is simple. It is not because people said Delta Force was disbanded that it was disbanded. The disbandment as an announcement is misleading and deceitful. And that's why we are saying that there must be the political will across the board. Everybody must agree that this is a monster, as the theme of your discussion last night portrayed, so that we can all rise above this monster and deal with it. But the confusion continues to muddy the waters when you come with a new name, but you defend Delta Force. But having made this observation, is it not the appeal for the justice system to hold everybody accountable, regardless of who you are, that Ghanaians are fighting for? And to that extent, it's not just this incident, it is the incidents that came before it. Is it not also true that both the media and other actors said, if you look on one side over an incident and the arm of justice refuses to function, what you have done is to create a precedent, and subsequent incidents will continue to happen and the justice system will be paralyzed.
Mr. Bombande,
and that is what we continue to see happening.
Mr. Bombande, my final question to you is, how do we resolve this confusion in the national security apparatus? Because we're having what you describe as some sort of turf war.
It is a turf war. I recall very well, it was in your studios. I think it was PM Express, when I stated categorically that our security architecture under the current dispensation is too top-heavy. You have too many people with too many roles functioning all in the area of the coordination of security. If there was an advice I could put across for the listening ear of our president, he has to be the one as the commander-in-chief to immediately seize this opportunity and reorganize his entire security architecture and make it less top-heavy, eliminate the duplications, and make it much easier to govern, and allow a clarity of command structure so that it is not just government, but all Ghanaians can relate to who is in charge at what level, in order that we can be able to see our way through. But the reason why it's even more urgent and important is because in our neighborhood across West Africa, for example, we don't have the time, but I could have given you the example of the Kolwego in Burkina Faso, who were militant groups like Delta Force and later on became terrorist groups. And that is why, for the sake of what we have, which is our treasure, which is our peace and our security, the president, in my advice, should take this as seriously as possible and sanitize the entire security machinery, remove the duplication, and make it easier to manage administratively.
All right.
I don't want to be speculative and specific, but I'm sure the president would be able to know that in sanitizing the security agencies, some of them have to be completely, if you would call it, suppressed.
Especially because while all of this is going on, the turf war and all of that, people will wonder what is the state of national security, or who is securing the nation if national security, as it were, is in some form of confusion.
Absolutely, absolutely. And your point is so right, because people are forgetting that the emphasis is national security, as you have underlined. And God forbid, if we look on the side and these theft wars continue, going by our history, political parties begin to campaign for positions both at national executive level, members of parliament, and presidential candidates. That theft war will now continue in the political field, particularly in NPP. And who is the strongest will be the one who would deploy the strongest apparatus available as security. At that point, the total confusion would simply make us not to be able to cope. And we become our worst enemies by shooting ourselves in the foot. So this is as urgent as it is in the responsibility of government to ensure that the citizens are well protected. We cannot have good initiatives such as the Accra Initiative, such as the framework for the prevention of terrorism and counter-extremism that was led by Honorable Kandapa as Minister for Internal Security. And with all these nice policies in place, we are not able to see our way through because people are fighting within the security machinery and undermining how Ghana's security is efficient and well coordinated.
Right.
And the consequence will be all of us would lose.
All right. Thank you very much, Senior Mediation Advisor at the UN, Emmanuel Bombande is a security analyst as well. You're watching Joy News Prime. We're taking a break at this point, but we have more stories coming your way. Do stay tuned in.